Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome to another video for EVE Online. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's kind of a thought piece, me giving my opinions and having a discussion, and I'm going to be doing this actually whilst ratting a site. So what you're seeing here on screen is literally me playing right now and trying to hold a cohesive, coherent conversation with you all whilst I try and run this Tetramon base, just to prove that it's me. We're going to go left, we're going to go right, left, right, up, down, that kind of thing there. We're just going to be running this as I talk. Now, the purpose of this video is essentially to talk about the concept of PvP in EVE, because I'm not a big PvPer. If you go looking around my channel, I'm pretty sure you won't find all that many PvP videos. It's very much, I'm a PvE-based player. I do exploration, I do combat sites. But with the new Crimson Harvest event, there's been a lot of people commenting on the channel about how awful this is and how CCP are just, you know, pushing PvP on the game and all this kind of thing. So we're going to have a chat about this whilst I shoot some Tetramon ships and get myself some loot for this new event, and hopefully don't lose my drones in the process because I am awful at that. So if you enjoy this video and you like this kind of conversation style, let me know. I'd like to do more stuff like this if it works, if I don't lose the ship halfway through, although to be fair, that will be fun and kind of fitting with the theme of the video, so we'll see. Let me know, hit like, drop a comment down below, heck, come find me on Patreon, drop a tip in my PayPal tip jar, check out my Redbubble merchandise store, you know the drill by now. Let's kind of jump right in on this one. It's kind of a stream of consciousness we're going to have going on here. Now, in short, essentially, as I said, Crimson Harvest has just launched at the time of me making this video, and this has a lot of people going, oh great, it's another event that is just PvP, there's nothing for me as a PvE player, it's awful, I'm just not going to play the game for the next month, and all this kind of other, forgive me sounding a bit sort of dismissive about this, but all this other kind of drama and slightly overblown reactions, right? So this got me thinking, because again, I'm not a PvP player particularly. I'm trying to get involved in PvP a bit more these days, and kind of, you know, run some roams, maybe set up some ganks and go hunting through wormholes and low sec and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm very much a PvE player. I enjoy being hunted more than hunting. And that's kind of where I want to go with this video, if that kind of makes sense. I want to talk about the art of being hunted and why this is so important to EVE Online. Now, the first step of talking about this is to understand that when people say, oh, CCP always push PvP, of course they do. That's literally what EVE is about. EVE is a massively multiplayer online space simulator. Massively multiplayer online being the key parts of that. It's all about the players, and if you want to understand the themes of EVE Online, like what is actually the theme of this game, I would argue the theme is humanity. This is a very human game. It's about the concept of what humans do to each other, what these different empires do to other humans, and kind of to a certain extent, how a universe copes with the concept of immortal, superhuman demigods flying around everywhere, right? That's, to me at least, the core concept of EVE. That is what this game is about. That's what it's examining and what it's looking at. And oh, I'm losing my drones there. Let's bring those back. So to not have PvP be at the forefront, I honestly think is kind of missing a huge key point of what this game is about. Yes, even in high security systems, you can be jumped, you can be ganked, you can be minding your own business, and someone comes out of the woodwork, blows you up, and spoils everything, in inverted commas. To me, though, that's the fun. And that's going to sound a bit weird, because, yeah, in EVE, loss is permanent. If you die in PvP in something like, say, World of Warcraft, you've got maybe a couple of minutes of respawn timer or running back to your corpse or whatever, but there's nothing permanent. You kind of just respawn and get on with your life. You might lose some points if it's a battlefield or an arena or something like that, but for the most part, it is what it is, right? You die, you come back, you keep going. In EVE, when you destroy something as a player, when you destroy another player's ship, you are destroying something that they worked towards, something that they created. You are taking something away from them. And that is in my opinion at least, very meaningful. That is what gives EVE its meaning. It's also a key part of the game design. They talk a lot, CCP, about the cycles of EVE Online, and one of the big cycles is the cycle of destruction and creation. And we've seen this, what happens when that cycle is broken in EVE Echoes. By getting rid of the destruction, there's no room left for creation. A friend of mine once stated that I'd just gone through a rough breakup, and this is before the whole Carrie and I situation, going way back. And he said the thing is, our solar system was created when a star exploded. One star, millions of years ago, exploded, and the material from that explosion gave birth to our sun. It also gave birth to the Earth and the other planets, and it's all of that stardust from that star that exploded that gave rise to life, right? So through the destruction of one thing, you have the creation of something different. And that's very much the case with EVE Online. That is what this game focuses on. That is one of the major cycles of EVE Online. Destroying something leaves room to create something else. So to kid yourself that this isn't a PvP game is kind of missing the point. Yes, there's PvE content, but it is still a PvP game. I'm sitting here in space now, in a J-space system, in a wormhole system, ratting one of these Tetramon sites. I don't have many friends around me at this point in time. We're not practicing full hull control on this because it's much further down the chain than I would normally fly, perhaps, but I'm descanning. You look at the bottom left here, you'll see that little box is flashing green every few seconds as my thumb hits the V key. I'm doing that to keep an eye out for anyone around me, and I've also just realised I've set the angle to 15 degrees. Let's bring that all the way up. Oh good, we do have some people nearby, and those are friendlies. So I'm okay with that, but I can see there's a Raven and a Praxis in system, and thank goodness I've picked up on that early enough to, you know, not run the risk of, that actually being a hostile. But you get my point. I'm descanning. This is a form of prevention. I'm looking around me, seeing what is available, you know, what information I have available around me, what other ships are in the system. Are those ships threatening? Are they dangerous to me? And by keeping an eye on that, I can keep an eye on whether or not I'm being hunted. I can also sit there and watch out for combat scanner probes being dropped, because that probably means there's someone hostile in system. So I'm looking out for ships that I don't recognise, I'm looking out for signs that someone is hunting me. It's a form of prevention, and to me that is a key part of flying anywhere in EVE. So just going to drop the MTU there, because I've forgotten that as well, and we're going to name that Benzie1. There we are. That's a key part of EVE, that when you die, 9 times out of 10, it's because you did something wrong. There's none of this, oh, that player cheated, or that player is just flat out better than me. Yeah, sure, you're going to always come across players who are better than you. There are going to be PvPers who have been PvPing in EVE Online longer than I've been playing personally. And they are going to be good. But you could have avoided them. And you can't ever guarantee avoidance. You can't just sit in high sec and go, well, I'm completely 100% freaking safe. Nothing bad is ever going to happen to me. Because that would run anathema to the design context of EVE, which is that, yes, everyone, and I do mean everyone, is your enemy in this game, potentially. Heck, the fact is, my corp mates could warp in and shoot me at any moment. That is absolutely valid. There'd be absolute dicks for doing it, but it is a valid gameplay style, and you do see this kind of backstabbing in EVE Online. It happens. It's part of the game. A core concept of game design is that if it's possible in the game, then it's because the developers wanted you to be able to do it. If they didn't want you to be able to do it, they would have programmed it out. If, for example, they didn't want you to be able to shoot at other players, they would just make it so that you can't shoot at other players. If they didn't want you to be able to warp in and steal someone's loot, they would make it so that loot caches were, you know, purely sorted by you, that, you know, you were the only person who could actually do that, who could actually loot the wrecks and things. They have added these systems for the purposes, I'm losing drones left, right and centre here, for the purposes of player interaction. The point I'm kind of getting at here, when it comes down to it, is that PvP is a necessary part of EVE. Let's jump back to that. When it comes down to it, that talk about creation and destruction. If we didn't have things being destroyed, then there's no need for things to be created. Like, if you just got your ship back every time you lost it, then there's no reason to ever buy a ship again. You buy a ship once and that's it. If I buy a Vagabond and then that's it, I'm done with it. If it gets destroyed, I just end up getting a new one shipped straight out to me kind of thing, then I never buy a Vagabond again. I've bought one ship rather than, I mean, already I'm on, what, 9, 10 Vagabonds that I've bought? That's how industry operates. Industry operates by allowing you to replace your losses in the game. That's a key factor of that. So if nothing gets destroyed, if there were, then there's no creation. No destruction means no creation. And the argument could be, okay, but what about making like 0.9 or 0.10, you know, what 1.0 high security be completely safe? Well, we've seen this in Echoes. If you give people the option of playing 100% safe, they will take that option. Even if you can't earn ISK at nearly as high a rate as anywhere else, the fact that there is no chance of losing anything means it's always going to be profitable. Would you rather sit in a situation where you can earn 8 million ISK per hour but never run the risk of losing anything, or 20 million ISK an hour but there is a chance that you will lose absolutely everything that you're flying? A lot of players will just go for the 8 million and grind twice as long but in complete safety. So if you add that option, you open the doors to complete lack of destruction. That is anathema to EVE as a design concept. So then, if safety's not a thing, and you don't want to PvP, well, the argument is you don't have to PvP. I'm not a big PvPer. I don't really do well at hunting. I'm trying to get better at it. But for the most part, I'm a PvEer. I like ratting sites like you're watching me do here. It's what I enjoy in the game. But to me, the thought of being hunted whilst doing that is so much more exciting than doing that in a completely safe environment. Like, to me, the thought of sitting here in high sec and, you know, being safer and not having to worry about, like, someone jumping in on me, that's boring as all hell. Why would I want to do that? I like being hunted. Being hunted is what makes this exciting for me. And I've got ways that I can avoid it. I can sit here and descan. I can bring friends with me who are going to keep an eye on me as well, and having multiple people in system means I'm less likely to be ganked, because it's not just, oh, we could jump on this, it's, oh yeah, but he's got friends nearby him who are going to jump us back. Things like that. We went out on a big PvP roam yesterday, enjoying the whole 90% loot drops that are going on as part of the Crimson Harvest event. And we went ganking some folks in high sec. And we killed a healer who was fresh out of an abyssal dead space. And you may say, okay, but what's the counterplay for that? This poor guy finished his abyssal dead space. He came out the final gate, and there was a fleet of catalysts on him. Those catalysts just ripped him to pieces. There was nothing he could do about that. No, because he'd missed his opportunity. His first big mistake was that he had opened the abyssal traces literally within 2 AU of a major Stargate. We jumped into system, and our scout's descan picked up an abyssal trace. We then saw that trace be joined by a healer on descan, and then a few seconds later that trace disappeared, a new one opened up, and the healer disappeared, and we're like, well, okay, that's a guy who's running abyssal dead spaces right next to a gate. We can clearly see this on descan. We probe scanned it down whilst he was running the abyssal site, we parked outside of it, and then ganked him when he came out of it. Now, you might be saying to yourself, is that much fun? For us it was, and it perpetuates that cycle of destruction and creation. It also hopefully taught that guy a lesson, in that you don't open up an abyssal trace 2 AU from a major gate in a 0.5 system. If you're going to complain about, oh, you know, I don't want to be ganked, then take the necessary precautions to not be ganked, right? Make sure that you are setting up a deep safe, somewhere that is 14 AU from any of the major gates. Technically 15 AU, because you want a bit of extra distance. Make sure you are safely out of sight. Set yourself up in a situation where you have people around you. Do a form of content that has less risk attached to it. Nothing's completely risk-free in EVE Online, and I've explained already why that is. There are always steps you can take to be safer. Sometimes those require, in inverted commas, external tools, like using Dotlan or Udama Scout or something like that, just to keep an eye on what's going on around you. Is the route you want to take safe? Sometimes it's a case of knowing that Abazon and Rancer are systems that are consistently bombed with people using smart bombs. So you get smart bombed the first time that you go into that system, but then you learn that, okay, that's a smart bombing system. Maybe I should be a bit more careful when going through that system. And you look at how smart bombs work and you say to yourself, right, okay, so this guy got me because I walked straight to the gate, I landed within 7.5 kilometers of him, and his smart bombs took me out. What I need to do is make sure that I land further than 7.5 kilometers away. And so you just do that. You set that up for future. You now sit in a situation where, right, okay, this time I'm coming into that system. I'm now going to warp to a planet first and then warp to the gate so that I'm not approaching on a gate-to-gate line where he's sitting waiting to smart bomb. I'm going to approach from a different angle so I'm out of range of his smart bombs. Or I'm going to use a covert ops cloak whilst hauling my stuff in my frigate so that I can warp cloaked and he won't see me. There are options and ways around these things. And that is absolutely a key concept to everything. I have never, ever in my entire time with EVE found a single situation where I can honestly sit there and say, yeah, okay, that guy lost his ship and there was nothing he could have done about it. There are always ways. Perhaps the exception could be given that your first time going through Rancer or Abazon or somewhere like that where you don't know that these camps are a thing because you're a new player. Yeah, maybe. That could be an argument, I suppose, that as a new player you may not know these things exist. That's fine. The first time it happens to you, take that as a learning opportunity and go, right, okay, these things happen in game, how does that work? Instead of, what I kind of want to get at there is that rather than complaining that, oh, that's so unfair, how was I supposed to know? Sit there and go, right, okay, this has happened, how can I deal with that for the future? Life isn't fair. There's an old saying that life is the worst teacher ever, because they give you the test, then the lessons. And that is so true, and that's literally what EVE does as well. You have the test, and if you fail the test, that's your lesson, right? That's part and parcel of it. It's why we talk about the golden rule of EVE Online being not to fly anything that you can't afford to lose. Make sure you've always got a backup. And people saying, oh, well, that's not new bro friendly at all, clearly haven't started playing the game again recently. I rejoined and started up a new character February last year, and the onboarding experience now is really, really good. You come out of the tutorial, you're given the agent career missions right on your doorstep. Those give you a load of ISK and a load of starting off ships. And then as you're doing those, you're also going to be filling in the air career program. And the air career program gives you more ISK. It gives you more ships. It gives you more of everything, so that you're now in a situation where actually if you lose a ship, you've probably got a few backups already, or you can just run the career agent missions a few times. Run all 3 of your career agent missions and you've got 3 destroyers. You lose the first 2, you've still got 1 to go. And then doing the air career program, there are frigate crates and skill crates and all this kind of thing in there that are really going to help you out, plus a ton of ISK to buy stuff off the market. EVE definitely can do better for the new player experience and not have to rely too much on corporations, but corporations ultimately are the people who teach you how to play this game. And I do think that a lot of the people complaining that, oh, PvP's unfair, I don't know how to deal with that, they're people who haven't really tried to engage with the system. They've lost a ship, they're upset that they've lost a ship, but rather than figure out why they lost the ship and try to find out how not to let that happen, they just cry that it's unfair. And I think they're doing themselves a disservice with that. Like, as I said, for me, I could do this in HiSec. I could be ratting these sites in something like a Kronos or a Varga, because anyone who jumps me there is going to have a harder time handling it. Instead, I'm in a Vagabond. Because it's a 300 million ISK ship that can run the content rather than a 3.3 billion ISK ship that can run the content. To me, there's a big difference in those two things, and it means that I'm managing my own risk, basically, right? I'm not just going into a situation and going for the biggest, most expensive thing. And I think it's very easy. It's a common thing in gaming to try and min-max. Go onto YouTube. What is the meta fit? What is the one best way of doing anything in this game? What one thing is going to make me succeed more than anything else? And I think you're selling yourself short if that's the mentality you use when playing EVE. You should instead be looking at what's fun. How can I learn how to make what I enjoy work? It's the amount of times I've sat there at the end of a video where I've sat there and showcased something like using the Vagabond for C3 ratting, and people have gone, oh, well, why would you use that? The healer's much better, or it's faster, or this or that. And it's like, yeah, but you don't always want to fly those. Why would I fly this when I could fly a Praxis? Because not everyone enjoys the Praxis. Sometimes people want to fly the ship that's fun to them. So find what works for you. Find ways to mitigate those risks. And if you lose something, don't get angry. Reach out to the person and say, hey, good fight. Just so I know, how did you do that? How could I prevent that happening next time? What could I do that means I'm less likely to be destroyed in the future? That's going to give you as a player a much better experience. You're going to have much more fun. And it's going to make the game just more exciting. Because now you can sit there and have a look at the fact that you're not just worried about losing stuff anymore. Heck, I'd also argue, get out there. Join a corporation, go on a PvP roam. You might sit there and say, oh, I don't enjoy PvP. As awful as this sounds, and I don't mean this to sound as judgmental as it's going to, it's quite possible that you don't enjoy PvP because you suck at it. I suck at PvP, and I know that's why I stopped enjoying it. But when I go out with a fleet of people, and we have fun and we blow some stuff up, it feels awesome. When I go out with a bunch of people on a roam and we get caught up in a massive fight and get blown to shit and back like we did in Pochven the other day, that was awesome. I don't care that I lost the ship, I had great fun doing it, and I was flying something cheap enough that it didn't actually matter all that much. Find ways to mitigate the risk. Find ways to make the game fun, and don't be afraid to reach out, have fun with friends, and find new ways to enjoy it. If you think ganking is low effort content, we had to set up a load of jump points yesterday. We were roaming around for ages before we found, this abyssal trace. We had a specially designed setup of different ships that were there to, figure out how we could gank as best of our ability, and a lot of those ships were completely alpha friendly, which was really cool. So we had a lot of our newer players come join us. We had scouts. We had a hauler sitting there ready to grab the loot and then run off with it. We even actually had to tease Concord around system a few times so that we'd have a few extra seconds of shooting at whatever we wanted to shoot at before they arrived. It required quite the setup. And so it wasn't low effort at all, and it's quite an exciting new way of playing. And that's something I'd recommend players to try. Rather than just complain about the risk in the game, go and find out what that risk's actually all about. Go and find ways to mitigate that risk, and if you can learn how the PvPers do what they do, maybe, just maybe, you can learn to avoid it. And if you can learn to avoid it, maybe, like me, you'll find that is where your fun lies. For me, ratting safely, with no one else around, it's boring as hell. Crimson Harvest is on. I'm a juicy target now, 90% chance of my loot dropping. Damn straight, I am getting out there and running more content than ever right now, because it's a challenge. It's a chance for me to test my skills against PvPers trying to hunt me down. I am the gazelle, they are the hunter. They are the pack of lions, pride of lions, or whatever. And I'm going to prove that I'm better than them. Anyway, folks, that's everything from me on this topic. I don't think I've missed any major points there. If you do have any questions, if you've got anything you disagree with what I've said, I'd love to hear it in the comment section down below. Otherwise, folks, happy sailing, hope you're enjoying the Crimson Harvest, and see you in New Eden.